Well, hello, everybody. Welcome along. Yep. Okay. Yep. So here we go. Welcome along, everybody. Spa-Francorchamps, the final race of the 2023. It's Belgium, it's Spa-Francorchamps, and it's the final round of the 2023 Ferrari Challenge UK coming up here. And what are overcast skies here in the middle of the Ardennes forest. Qualifying took place this morning. That qualifying session sets the grid for this afternoon's race, and it is a 30-minute race that will decide ultimately who are going to be our respective champions, whether it be in Trofeo Pirelli or in Coppa Shell. Spa is a beautiful part of Belgium. Amongst the trees, it's one of the most challenging circuits in the world. Famous corners, La Source, Eau Rouge, Radion, Lecombe, Blanchiment. They're all there to challenge the drivers, challenge their pros who support them along the way. But only one driver can ultimately be crowned the 2023 Ferrari Challenge UK champion. Who's going to come out on top? We'll find out very shortly indeed. So Spa-Francorchamps is about 35 kilometres southeast of Liège. It's about 75 kilometres east of Brussels. And as we say, absolutely steeped in history. The cars are heading on to the grid. I know Dave Richardson will be down there on the grid very, very shortly. The breeze has got up slightly since this morning. It was a real light breeze this morning, but it's slightly got breezier very slightly. Air temperature is up as well. It's, what, 21 degrees for qualifying. It's now 24 degrees, and the track temperature has risen as well. So there's a lot to challenge the drivers. Physically, it's going to be a tough race, and we will wait and see, ultimately, as who's going to be the champion in Trofeo Pirelli, who's going to be the champion in Coppa Shell. So the scene is set. We are ready to go in 2023. I'm looking forward to calling this from the commentary box, but I know there's somebody busting to get this race underway down there on the grid. His final grid walk of the 2023 championship season. Dave Richardson is in prime position.
I have a bit of a tear, Mark Werrell. Yeah, very much looking forward to hearing your call of this race. I mean, it could not be more dramatic as we conclude the 2023 championship qualifying today. My goodness me. If Mark Werrell and I had written the script for making it dramatic, I mean, we certainly wouldn't have written it the way it actually ended up, but my goodness me. Let me talk about Trofeo Pirelli first of all. Andrew Morrow is starting all the way back here. The reason for that is not able to complete qualifying, and so Andrew Morrow's on the back foot. He's got to do some overtaking here. We jolly well know that Andrew Morrow can overtake, and I'm absolutely not going to disturb him today out of respect for him, because he's such a talented young driver. Only, you know, no racing experience before coming into the Ferrari Challenge. Absolutely remarkable what Andrew Morrow has achieved. So we'll go through the grid, and when it comes to the championships, of course, Trofeo Pirelli and Coppa Shell, I must make mention of the fact that Paul Simerson had an off in qualifying, and it was a big off, but Paul Simerson is perfectly okay. I've had news from the hospital where he went for a precautionary x-ray that he's perfectly okay, but regrettably he's not going to be in the race, which kind of pushes the championship towards Paul Hogarth in Coppa Shell. But I can tell you it's not the way that Paul Hogarth would want to take the championship. He would want to fight with Paul Simerson out here on track. So all our best wishes to Paul Simerson, and we look forward to seeing you back on the track very, very soon. And I know that speaks for everyone involved in the Ferrari Challenge. One of the big jokers in Ferrari Challenge UK this year has been this man, Peter Hunter, who is an absolute legend. Peter, it's been a joy to work with you.
Thank you.
I can't believe the season is done here at Spa-Francorchamps.
That's it. That's it. You're not going to see me anymore. That's it.
Until next year.
Well, we've also got social media and that, you know, that special website we both go on.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to bring in Peter's driver coach here, Ollie, who in his own right is a hugely successful racing driver. How, in goodness only knows name, do you tame this beast, Ollie?
Yeah, there's no taming this thing, Jesus Christ. No, he's done really well. From no racing at all, straight into Ferrari Challenge is not, it's not a mean feat, so he's doing really well.
Think the world of the man, Peter Hunter, great guy. Have a great race. Come on, let's make our way down through the grid. I kind of knew that today's grid walk would not take the same format as it's done previously, and probably there would be one or two jokes and things coming up, but absolutely fantastic. This man on the right-hand side, Robert Rees, who ended up yesterday not only on the podium, but on the top step of the podium. The man is awesome. Robert, best of luck for today's race, friend. I'm from Welsh Wales, you know. There's Robert, that's it. It's all over, Dave. You're fired. We look forward to Robert Rees doing well today. Another driver that is awesome at the moment is Chris Smith. He's done a great job. Chris, don't bet against him being on the podium and maybe even the top step today. And to my right-hand side, here's Faisal Al-Faisal. To the left, it is Paul Hogarth. Good luck to Paul Hogarth. Fulvio Musi, his driver coach there. P2 on the grid is Hans Seckens. P1, it's Carl Cavers. He's trusty coach Lewis Plato alongside him there. This is it. 2023 is just about done and dusted at the end of this race. Our champions in Trofeo Pirelli and in Coppa Shell for the UK will be crowned. Mark Werrell.
Thanks, Dave. Brilliant stuff. So the cars are on the grid, and they'll be heading off on their formation lap very, very shortly Indeed. So the circuit at Spa is a challenging one as it winds its way through the forests. There are 19 corners throughout the course of the lap. From the tight hairpin turn 1 at La Source, you drop downhill through turns 2 and 3, Eau Rouge and Radion, and up towards Kemmel Straits. And then from there, you're downhill all the way. A challenging circuit. It is 4.3 miles. It is 7 kilometres over the course of the 30-minute race that we'll see coming up. Well, we've announced the 2024 calendar as well, and what does that look like for Ferrari Challenge next year? Starting the season at Brands Hatch in 2024, finishing the season at Silverstone for the domestic season. So the cars are ready, the drivers are ready. Carl Cavers starts from pole position. His task is fairly simple in reality. He needs to win this race. He needs to set the fastest lap in this race, and then keep his fingers crossed that Andrew Morrow doesn't finish any higher than 5th, which is where he starts in Trofeo Pirelli. If that were to happen, if I've got the maths right, they're both on 133 points. So you go to count back. They would both have 3 wins. They'd both have 3 second places. You then have to look at the number of third places they've got. And on count back, Carl Cavers would win. If Andrew Morrow manages to gain just 1 place in Trofeo Pirelli, then that would be good enough for him. So the maths are complex but simple in Trofeo Pirelli. In Coppa Shell, well, subject to official confirmation, the championship this year is going the way of Paul Hogarth because of that incident that befell Paul Simonson during qualifying. So just like Dave was saying down there on the grid, get well soon, Paul. Hope that you are just getting checked over. I know you went to hospital to be checked over, and let's hope that we see him back out and back to full fitness very soon indeed. So the grid is being cleared. They'll be making their way round on the formation lap. Just the last couple of crew members leaving the circuit, and the Ferrari safety car is ready to guide them around the final formation lap for what is the last race of the 2023 championship season. So we're about to get the last race underway. So off goes the Richard Mille safety car, and as we get the rolling lap underway, let's confirm the grid then. Carl Cavers starts from pole position with Hans Sickins lining up alongside him on the front row of the grid. Row number 2 sees yesterday's race winner Faisal Al Faisal line up alongside the quickest car in Coppa Shell, Paul Hogarth. John Dillon has Chris Smith for company on row number 3, and on row number 4 it's Robert Rees and Paul Rogers that line up on the 4th row of the grid. Row 5 sees Jonathan Satchel pitched against Peter Hunter. And on the 6th row of the grid, it's Julian Dye and Stuart Marsden that line up with Andrew Morrow, remember, off the very back of the grid, and the man to watch in terms of the championship. Those problems in qualifying meant that he didn't get a lap in, and therefore he starts off the very, very back of the grid. He'll be conscious he needs to overtake and get past the Coppa Shell cars, but equally as much, he will also be well aware he can't afford to get tangled up in anything. So he needs to be cautious but aggressive at the same time, which is a very strange dynamic to have to try and work your way around. I'm sure his pro driver Johnny Kane will have almost set a strategy and said, look, this is what we need to do. Pick a few off, then just settle into the race and see how it evolves. As long as you finish, we're in a good place. So those conversations will have gone on. And the flip side of that is Lewis Plater would have been talking to his driver, Carl Cavers, who starts at the very front of the grid on pole position. He'll have been saying almost the opposite. Carl, you've got to go for it. You've got to win this race. You've got to try and set the fastest lap of the race. And if you do all of that, there's nothing else you can do to try and win the championship. It's all then reliant on what goes on at the back with Andrew Morrow and his progress through the field. So, as we say, you couldn't have written the script for this one. Exciting times ahead. Hopefully, last day at school for everybody here in Ferrari Challenge 2023. and they will all be looking forward to, I'm sure, doing it all again in 2024 when we get the season underway. So there's some nervous looking faces down there in the pit lane area. The safety car has almost completed its lap. It's just coming around through double gauche now, I think, and up towards what will be La Fagna. So it's the red car with the day-glow flashes of Carl Cavers that sits there on the pole position. It's metallic red almost with black for Hans Sickens, that is second on the grid. And third on the grid, it's green and grey for Faisal Al Faisal, alongside the black car with its day-glow green flashes of Paul Hogarth. And in the third row of the grid, it's Italian Tricolores colours for John Dillon, green and white and red, alongside the Great Paul Birmingham car, which is largely blue and light blue and purple flashes for Chris Smith. Watch out for the Ferrari off the back of the field. Remember, number 4, Andrew Morrow, will be trying to keep an eye on his progress through the order. And there's little more that the pro drivers can do there. Ben Barker, Chris Diamond will be on the radio to their respective drivers. And, well, their job isn't done. There's still calming words to be had in ears of drivers, but there's little more real input that they can have now in reality. So the cars are just coming round through Blanchimont, up towards the chicane, and then the lights will go out on the gantry, and for the final time in 2023, we'll be going racing in the Ferrari Challenge UK. Yesterday we saw the man from the outside of the front row of the grid, Faisal Al Faisal, grab the lead as they went up towards the source. Can Hans Sickens do that and beat Carl Cavers to the tight right-hander? Safety car peels its way into the pit lane. For the final time in 2023, we go racing in Ferrari Challenge UK. Champions will be crowned in the next 30 minutes. Red lights on the gantry. They go out now, and we're away and racing, and it looks as though it's not a bad start from Hans Sickens, but Carl Cavers has the inside line. However, he might have Faisal Al Faisal trying to sneak his way through. They go in towards La Source, and it is Carl Cavers that leads the way from Hans Sickens in second position. Faisal Al Faisal is there in third. Fourth is John Dillon, and already Andrew Morrow has picked off 2 or 3 or possibly 4 of the Coppa Shell cars. So he's already starting to make his way through the field as they head down through Eau Rouge and climb up towards Radion for the first time. Carl Cavers looking to try and break away. Remember, he needs to win this race really, and ideally set the fastest lap to put himself in the best possible position to try and claim the championship. Whereas for Andrew Morrow, all he really needs to do is keep his nose clean, see the checkered flag, and that would be sufficient as good as for him. Faisal Faisal almost up the inside there of Hans Sickens as they went through the second part of Le Common up towards Malmedy, but the order still remains the same. Carl Cavers leads from Hans Sickens, from Faisal Al Faisal, and the leading car in Coppa Shell at the moment, well, it is not Paul Hogarth, it is by the look of things Robert Rees that leads Coppa Shell once more, having claimed his first win in Coppa Shell yesterday. Could he make it a double here? We'll have to wait and see. He's in the blue car, sitting there in 4th position overall, but he does have Paul Hogarth sitting directly behind him, and then just behind that car is Andrew Morrow, who has almost already made his way through and past the Coppa Shell cars. So Robert Rees running a little bit wide there as he came out of double gauche up towards Campus, and then they'll work their way through from there. So just through La Fagna at the moment, actually, up towards Campus now. And Hogarth still sitting there, the black and the day-glow green car directly behind Robert Rees. Just off them is Andrew Morrow, so that means Andrew Morrow is already up into, what, 7th position, I would have thought now. Could make it 6th. Paul Hogarth will let him go. Paul Hogarth is pretty much, subject to official confirmation, confirmed as the Coppa Shell champion now for this year because of the problems that befell Paul Simonson over the course of qualifying. But the first lap is about to be completed, and so Carl Cavers is starting to disappear up the road a little bit. Hans Sickens still there in second place, but is dropping into the clutches of the car of Faisal Al Faisal. The two drivers from HR Rowan, representing that dealership in the UK, squabbling over second and third places at the moment as they head up towards the heavy braking area at La Source. Faisal Al Faisal looks for the inside line on Hans Sickens. Hans Sickens will see him coming, and Faisal Al Faisal tries to go through to second, but Hans Sickens will have better momentum off the corner, and as they plunge their way downhill towards Eau Rouge, he hangs on to second. all of this is playing beautifully into the hands of Carl Cavers, who at the end of the first lap of racing has opened up a 1 3/4 second gap between himself and the squabbling pair. Hansikins again under pressure from Faisal Al Faisal, who jinks out to the left-hand side and has a little bit more momentum as they head along the Kemmel Straight. Is he going to get his nose ahead by the time they get towards the braking area for Lecombe? Well, not by the look of things, or is he? Does he? Oh, it's tight. Hansikins brakes as late as he dare. They go side by side through the first part of Lecombe. Through the second part, it looks like Faisal Al Faisal still hasn't managed to work his way through, but by the time they get to Malmedy, he's up to second. Faisal Al Faisal through into second place. Hansikins drops down into third position. The win yesterday from Faisal Al Faisal promoted him up to fourth in the championship standings. He was sixth coming into this weekend, and it's been a couple of stellar weekends, really. Didn't get qualifying right at Silverstone, but finished on the podium for the first time. And then you get to the next race meeting here at Spa, and he's on the very top step of the podium, having claimed his first win of the season. Now, Faisal Al Faisal will look to try and see whether he can gap Hansikins, whilst Carl Cavers is now nearly 3 seconds up the road. Really has built a good advantage as Carl Cavers. In the background, keep an eye on what's going on, because John Dillon is under pressure from Andrew Morrow, and if Andrew Morrow can sneak his way through, that would put him up to fourth in Trofeo Pirelli. And if that's the case, if he can stay in fourth, if he can sneak his way through, that would be sufficient, subject to official confirmation again, if he remained there, for him to claim the championship. Was where he is at the moment, mathematically, it could still go the way of Carl Cavers. So this could be an important overtake for Andrew Morrow. John Dillon is not going to make it easy, that's absolutely for sure. He wants to try and finish the season on a high. But for Andrew Morrow, he's now carved his way past all of the Coppa Shell cars. He sits there fifth at the moment, which means he would end this race on 133 points. And if Carl Cavers wins and sets the fastest lap, he would also be on 133 points. So Carl Cavers doing what he can. Andrew Morrow needs to gain a place, and then if he gains a place, he'd be on 135 championship points. Carl Cavers would not be able to get to that tally. So let's have a quick look as they head over the start-finish line. In the background, look at what's going on in Coppa Shell as well, because we've got 4 cars busy fighting away for the lead of Coppa Shell. Paul Hogarth in the background trying to cover off Stuart Marsden, who's looking for the inside line as they head up towards Les Sources. Can he make it through? No, Paul Hogarth just gets across the nose of the largely red and black number 15 car, but Stuart Marsden has better drive coming off the corner. They are going to go wheel to wheel down in towards Eau Rouge. Now, something's got to give. Daunting part of the circuit. Surely you can't go side by side through Eau Rouge. No, Paul Hogarth backs out of it. Stuart Marsden gains the place. He goes to second for the moment in Coppa Shell. Hogarth is down to third in Coppa Shell, but he's got Chris Smith right behind him. Back to what's going on at the sharp end. Andrew Morrow weaving one way, weaving the other. John Dillon is certainly not going to make it easy. Those two still remain in exactly the same order. Chris Smith here is to think he's going to have a nibble on Paul Hogarth, who lets him go as well. Paul thinking about the championship, doesn't want to get involved, let them go through. Drops him off the podium spots for the moment in Coppa Shell. We're only on, 2 laps completed. Fastest lap of the race has gone on the first flying lap, the way of Carl Cavers, 2 minutes 27.804. So that is exactly what he needs to do, win the race and set the fastest lap. And with Andrew Morrow only being in 5th at the moment, mathematically they'd be tied on points. And as we say, you go to count back, and Carl Cavers has got the same number of wins, the same numbers of second places as Andrew Morrow, but he's got more third places, and that would mean that Carl Cavers on the count back, he'd have to go a fair way back, would be the champion. So Andrew Morrow, no doubt, being told this by Johnny Kane, everybody looking rather nervous in the pit lane. They'll have all done the maths as well. He needs to overtake John Dillon, and John Dillon is not easy to overtake. Now, the one good thing, I always try and look for positives out of negatives, that Andrew Morrow didn't really do hardly any laps in qualifying, so his tyres should be nice and fresh, whereas for others, they did more laps in qualifying, and therefore it's the same tyre they use in qualifying and in the race. There might be a bit more drop-off. Coppa Shell still being headed at the moment by Robert Rees from Stuart Marsden. Chris Smith is next up. Paul Hogarth in the black car with the Dalo green flashes is not far away. Now, Stuart Marsden here is looking to try and pick up the lead of Coppa Shell if at all he can. He sweeps himself all the way around the outside on the run in towards the bus stop and gets the car anchored up in time, just about. Now he just needs to be conscious as to how quickly and heavily he presses the throttle on the way out, but does so neatly. And Stuart Marsden picks up the lead of Coppa Shell. He has not this year had a win in Coppa Shell. He's had a couple of seconds, he's had a third. He's not had a win in Coppa Shell. He leads here though at Spa, the final race of 2023. And already is starting to gap the car he's just taken the Coppa Shell lead away from. So could we have two new Coppa Shell race winners over the course of this weekend? If Stuart Marsden stays where he is, we will. That's absolutely for sure. Third and fourth in Coppa Shell, still close though. Chris Smith feeling the pinch a little bit from Paul Hogarth. And as they start to head through the little kink at Kemmel and onto the Kemmel straight, Paul Hogarth will no doubt just be weaving around, anything to try and distract the attention of the driver ahead, Chris Smith, but there's no chink in his armour at the moment as the number 69 car weaves its way through the right and then the left at Le Comte and then up towards Malmedy, the highest part of the circuit. Now we're starting to see track limit warnings come in. We saw a few of those yesterday, which ultimately then weren't heeded, so the warnings became 5-second penalties, and for a couple of drivers it ultimately then resulted in drive-through penalties, one of which was John Dillon, who at the moment is still being kept rather busy by Andrew Morrow. The Grey Pool Nottingham car still sitting there fourth overall. The Charles Hurst dealer-backed car of Andrew Morrow still there in fifth place, which I say at the moment, if I've got my maths right, is still not sufficient. So he's got to try and find a way to overtake John Dillon somewhere. There's no panic at the moment because we're only a third of the way through the race, so there's still 20 minutes of the scheduled 30 to go. Stuart Marsden, as we can see, has pulled away from the blue machine of Paul Rees. So Stuart Marsden starting to cement his lead in Coppa Shell. And here's how he did it all the way around the outside on the run in towards the chicane. Brave move from Stuart Marsden. Robert Rees just about gave him enough room. Job done, through and lead the class. And understandably, that went down well with the family and the supporters in the garage. So Carl Cavers is pushing hard in the lead of the race. Has picked up a track limit warning that time through, but look at the lead advantage. He's got 8 seconds now is the gap between himself and Faisal Al-Faisal in second place. Hans Sickens settling in for third by the look of things, which would net him his 7th podium of the season so far. But for fourth and for fifth, this is the best battle in Trofeo Pirelli at the moment. John Dillon doing a very good job of holding up Andrew Morrow. And Andrew Morrow will be, no doubt, just looking if there's any opportunity to try and squeeze his way through, he'll try and do so, but he's also having to drive with a little bit of caution, because what he can't afford to do is try something and it not work and skitter off the road or anything like that. But he's a very, very quick driver, and despite the fact that he's relatively inexperienced, having only come into Ferrari Challenge last year, despite the fact he finished second, having not done a full season, this year he has been Mr. Consistency. He's finished on the podium in every single race that we've had so far this season, as Andrew Morrow. So out of Malmedy, down in towards Bruxelles. They'll go, and then Andrew Morrow takes a slightly wider line in. Long right-hander before you then head down towards Speaker's Corner. And it's round through here that Andrew Morrow, I think, is trying to unlock the door a little bit on John Dillon, but John Dillon again just covers off the move. So it's still John Dillon in fourth place, and Andrew Morrow is bottled up still in fifth position, trying to see if he can pick his way through. And all of this, of course, is meaning that the cars ahead are just disappearing ever more up the road. You can see maybe a bit more frustration now. Andrew Morrow might have got the hurry up, saying, look, come on, we've got to find something from somewhere. There's still time in which to do so. We've still got 18 minutes, but let's see whether we can apply the pressure to John Dillon and maybe see if there's a small chink in his armour. Andrew Morrow, wide line going through Campus. He's not going to squeeze up the inside as a head round through Stavelot, but he might get a good run round through Blanchimont and might be able to do what Stuart Marsden did to pick off the lead in Coppa Shell from Robert Rees. So here they go, speeds build, 7th gear. Slight dab of the brake as you head in towards Blanchimont, down to about 135 miles an hour, but you're straight back on the throttle as soon as you can again, and up to about 160 on the approach towards the chicane. And Andrew Morrow is going to try and do it. Stuart Marsden, is he? He brakes as late as he possibly can. He's going to sneak his way, is he, through? No, he brakes a bit too late. John Dillon covers him off. So Andrew Morrow still, at the moment, cannot work his way through into a championship winning position. He still sits there in what is 5th position. John Dillon is sticking with the task admirably at the moment, but he can't afford a mistake, John Dillon. He is inadvertently having a pivotal role to play in where the championship will go in 2023, and is doing a brilliant job at the moment of keeping the unfortunate Andrew Morrow behind him. So down through Eau Rouge, climbing up towards Radion. Be careful of the circuit limits on the exit of the corners. A few drivers have fallen foul of that over the course of the weekend. Andrew Morrow gets another good run as they head up the Kemmel Straight. Now, what's he going to try this time? John Dillon is just looking in his mirrors. He's going to cover off any move from Andrew Morrow, who breaks as late as he can in towards Le Combe, but he's not going to squeeze his way through there. Is he going to try around the outside of the next aspect to get the inside line for Malmedy? And I think it's worked. Yeah, Andrew Morrow goes through. He picks up the place, and that, at the moment, is now sufficient for him to be the champion, if I've got the maths right, because he would finish the race. Now he's up to 4th place on 135 championship points. If Carl Cavers wins and sets the fastest lap, he would only be on 133 championship points. So there's no more Carl Cavers can do. He's done everything that's been asked of him. The problem is that Andrew Morrow now has gained a place in Trofeo Pirelli, and that is, if he stays where he is, sufficient for him to lift the crown this year. So he knew the task, took him a while to do it. We've still got half of the race to go, and Andrew Morrow is now up into what is 4th position. Down to 5th goes John Dillon. Just have another quick look at Carl Cavers pushing hard. You can see the car bouncing around as he wrestles it through the chicane. And at the moment, he is 9 seconds to the good from Faisal Al Faisal. So Carl Cavers is doing everything he possibly could. I spoke to him over the course of the lunch break and after qualifying, and he did say, you know, it's still a tall ask, Mark. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, but, you know, mathematically, it's still possible. And at the moment, he's done everything that's been asked of him. He's taken the lead. He's run away with the lead. He's set the fastest lap, which will allow him to pick up the extra championship point. But he might just come up short if Andrew Morrow stays in 4th place. Now, how far is Andrew Morrow behind Hans Sickens? 8.4 seconds is the gap. So there comes Faisal Al Faisal and Hans Sickens. And then in the background, there's Andrew Morrow. So that's the relative gap from 3rd to 4th place. And already you can see Andrew Morrow has quite significantly gapped John Dillon. Number 61 car is a fair way behind Andrew Morrow. Remember, Andrew's come off the back of the grid as well. So he's already done a good old chunk of overtaking to get to where he needed to be. Now for Coppa Shell, we've got a good fight going on for 3rd, 4th and 5th in Coppa Shell at the moment. Robert Rees, yesterday's race winner, under pressure from Chris Smith. The black car with its green flashes is Paul Hogarth, who is looking as though he's going to pick up the Coppa Shell Championship crown for this year. Those three were close to each other in the braking area for La Source, but by the time they get towards Radion, of course, the gaps have just stretched out a little bit, but they'll all get in each other's tow as they head onto the Kemmel Straight this time through. Stuart Marsden with the black nose to his car, following the repairs that were worked on overnight by the team to get the car ready for today, is at the moment 3.3 seconds up the road from the 2nd, 3rd and 4th place cars in Coppa Shell. For Stuart Marsden, after a difficult day yesterday, great for him to finish the season with his first win in Coppa Shell this year. We've seen him on the podium 3 times so far this year, but we've not seen him on the top step of the Coppa Shell podium. Now Robert Rees working hard, Chris Smith right behind him. Both of these drivers have come on substantively over the course of the last few races. Chris Smith pushing hard, Robert Rees looking to see whether he can make it 2 podiums out of 2 at Spa. Even if Chris Smith gets through, then he'd still be on a podium, but then he's got Paul Hogarth ganging up on him, so he'll want to try and make sure that he stays in 2nd place. And whilst they squabble, it just allows that number 15 car of Stuart Marsden to edge away all of the time. Slightly tighter line taken in towards Lafagna by Chris Smith, but Robert Rees more than had him covered off. He's going to try again, a slightly tighter line this time as head up towards campus, but needs to be careful. If he tries something and it doesn't work, the door's left open for the 3rd car in the train, Paul Hogarth, to try and wiggle his way through. So out of Stavelot, slow climb uphill, doesn't look as though it is, but it's slightly uphill all the way towards Blanchimont and the final brake area for the chicane. And Chris Smith has got a bit of a run here on Robert Rees. Brake lights come on as they get back down to about 135 miles an hour for the apex at Blanchimont. Now, is he going to try anything as they come in towards a braking area for the chicane? And he does, yeah, he sneaks up the way in the inside, and he's going to go through, is he? Can he get the car stopped? Oh, just about. He then needs to be careful. He hops over the curb a little bit. Robert Rees gives him room, but Chris Smith sneaks his way through there. He almost ran out of room there. He was so late on the brakes, but fair driving by Robert Rees. He didn't squeeze him particularly and was rather gentlemanly, allowing him to ultimately go through with what was a very late lunge. Got up the inside though, job done. He is now up into second in Coppa. Yesterday's race winner in Coppa, Robert Rees, drops down to third, and having just lost one place, of course, he's now potentially under pressure to drop off the Coppa podium, because he's got Paul Hogarth, who is going to pick up the championship crown at the end of this race in Coppa, ganging up on him all the way up the Camel Straight. Let's just have another quick look at that overtake. He was so late on the brakes, look, almost ran out of room, just about stays within the confine of the circuit, hops over the sausage curb, and still manages to gain the place. Now, he might have gained the place. The problem is he's now coming under pressure himself, and the man he's just taken it away from. So Robert Rees is not going to make it easy. He's going to stick with the task in hand. And I think, actually, they might just be edging up a little bit more towards Stuart Marsden, who is only 2.3 seconds up the road from them now. So Stuart Marsden, yeah, absolutely. Stuart Marsden still leads Coppa, but now, look, Chris Smith, Robert Rees, Paul Hogarth are all there. There's a squeal of tyres, and Stuart Marsden goes off and into the gravel trap, I'm afraid. So double gauche, big cloud of dust. Somewhere in there will be Stuart Marsden, but I think that's the chance of a win in Coppa having gone now. So frustration for Stuart Marsden. Yeah, the car's sideways in the gravel trap, and the marshals go to hands to check that he's all right. I don't think he made it all the way to the tyre wall, but difficult end for the season for Stuart Marsden. Retirement yesterday, leading Coppa today. He's out of the race, and he's going to bring about the safety car with 10 minutes remaining. Shouldn't take long to get that car out of the way. So I think what they're saying is, yeah, you go that way, get back in the car, you go that way, we'll drag the car out of the gravel trap, and hopefully there'll be a gap in the barriers to get it behind. So it might just be maybe a single lap behind the safety car. We'll have to wait and see. What it does do is, it means that Carl Cavers, who built up an 8.5-second lead, is now going to lose it all. It also means that Andrew Morrow, remember, mathematically, he's in a position to win the championship now. He was 4.8 seconds adrift of the third-place car of Hans Sickins. Well, all of that's going to evaporate, so for Andrew Morrow, he could make further progress in this race now. So it certainly doesn't help Carl Cavers. It definitely helps Andrew Morrow, that's for sure. But it will also mean that Andrew Morrow starts to come back under pressure from John Dillon behind again, who had fallen to 9 seconds adrift. So we still don't know which way the championship title might be heading in Trofeo Pirelli. We certainly know where it's going to be heading in Coppa. That's going to be in the direction of Paul Hogarth, as a result of his main championship rival, Paul Simerson, not being able to take part in his final race of the season after his issues in qualifying. So the top 5 cars queued up behind the safety car. Chris Smith, who had, as a result of Stuart Marsden's off, has now taken up the lead of Coppa. Man who won Coppa for the first time at Silverstone last time out. Would love to finish the season with a second win of the year. Robert Rees would equally as much like to try and make it 2 wins this season, because he won for the first time yesterday. Paul Hogarth is next up, and then Paul Rogers at the wheel of the number 20 car, which we haven't seen much of in this race. Paul struggling with a bit of an ankle injury from yesterday when he was involved in an incident. Chipped a bone on his ankle, as we heard, and has been given the all clear to race. It's strapped up. He's feeling all right-ish, I think it's fair to say, but we'll have to wait and see as to what he might be able to do now that all of the cars are queued up back together. So whilst we're under safety car, let's go down to Dave Richardson, who's down there in the pit lane.
Mark Werrell, you may recall me saying right at the beginning of my grid walk that this could not be more dramatic. Well, actually, yes, it could, because unless I'm very much mistaken, Stuart Marsden was on for his first win of the season.
Yep.
We now have a safety car. Unfortunately, Stuart has caused the safety car, so he's not going to take the win, which is really sad for him, of course, but full points for him for certainly trying, that's for sure. But of course, what is critical is the fact that, as you called quite correctly, and I've done my mathematics as well, that surely Andrew Morrow has done enough now. What is going to be really, really interesting, and you'll be able to update me on this because I've been in and out of the garages and around the timing screens and looking at the GPS maps, as you would imagine, is that I'm not sure we're going to see either of our champions on the podium, are we?
That's a very good point at the moment. Well, Paul Hogarth at the moment is third in Coppa Shell, so he stands a good chance of being on the podium. And Andrew Morrow is fourth in Trofeo Pirelli, but of course he's caught the pack now, Dave, hasn't he? So he stands a better chance of overtaking.
That's a very good point, Mark. So, sorry, I can't really bring you any information from the pit lane other than the fact that I have never quite seen so much tension in garages as the tension that I am seeing now. And adding to that is we've got some of the European Trofeo Pirelli cars coming down the pit lane now, so I'm going to say cheerio, friend.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, brilliant stuff. The safety car's still out there for the moment, so we're going to get one further lap behind the safety car by the look of things, because we haven't quite got Stuart Marsden's car out of harm's way as things stand. So let's just run you through the order then. Carl Cavers leads the way at the moment and could be on course for his third win of the season. Faisal Al Faisal, yesterday's race winner, is there in second place. Hans Sickens is in third place, and Andrew Morrow has, well, a fingertip, a hand, whatever you want to call it, on the championship title in Trofeo Pirelli, because fourth, if he stays there, is sufficient for him to scoop up the title. John Dillon is there in fifth place, and in sixth place, it's our leader in Coppa Shell, which is Chris Smith. Seventh is Robert Rees. He's second in Coppa Shell, and completing the Coppa Shell podium at the moment would be the car in eighth place, which is Paul Hogarth's black car with its green livery to it. Paul Rogers is ninth. Julian Dye is there in 10th place. Jonathan Satchel is 11th. Peter Hunter is in 12th place. And, of course, Stuart Marsden, who has tumbled down to 13th now, is out of the race as a result of having caused this safety car period, which hopefully will be concluded at the end of this lap. It's going to be, well, they're only just going through Le Con now, so it's going to be at least another couple of minutes before the safety car gets to the start-finish line. So I am ever hopeful, and it's just been confirmed, safety car in this lap. So the safety car will speed up a little bit, so we should get two further racing laps out of this one. That's two more laps for Carl Cavers to try and hang on to the lead. Two further laps for Andrew Morrow to try and stay out of trouble. Doesn't need to do any overtaking, but he can't afford to lose a place to the car behind him. And we'll also see as to whether we might get Chris Smith able to hang on to what was a very small advantage, even before the safety car, in Coppa Shell. Because even with Stuart Marsden having gone off and Chris Smith inheriting that lead in Coppa Shell, Robert Rees, Paul Hogarth are all behind him anyway, so it's going to be an interesting one to see what might pan out for the final few minutes of the 2023 championship season. And I think no matter where you look in the Ferrari Challenge UK paddock, there are nervous looks here, there, everywhere at the moment in the garages, but there'll be big smiles all round and lots of nice, friendly conversations had at the end of what has been another brilliant season in Ferrari Challenge 2023. Can't wait for 2024 to get underway at Brands Hatch, with the calendar having just been announced earlier on this weekend here in Belgium. So safety car speeding up. The car's just heading out of Stavelot now and up towards Blanchimont. There'll be no overtaking until you reach the start-finish line. You can get a run on the car and be alongside it, but you can't have your nose ahead when you get towards the start-finish line. So for Carl Cavers, the key will be to back the pack up a little bit. The safety car's pulled away, and then he can decide as to when he wants to thump the throttle and get things back underway. Now, it takes around about 2.5 minutes to do a lap. We've got just over 3 minutes remaining, so we will get two more racing laps out of this one. So Carl Cavers heads through the chicane, safety car is in the pit lane, and we get the race back underway once more. Carl Cavers goes for it, but he's got Faisal Al Faisal not that far behind him on the run up towards Les Sources this time through. He's too far away to try anything, but Carl Cavers leads the way. Faisal Al Faisal in second place. Hans Sickens sitting there in third position. Andrew Morrow's there in fourth place. John Dillon in fifth. Faisal Al Faisal gets a good run coming out of Les Sources, so is only a couple of Ferrari lengths behind Carl Cavers as they head down in towards Les Sources, down in towards Rouge this time through, and then start to climb up Radion. Television pictures really still don't give you a justifiable impression of just how steep that is as you come from the dip down at Eau Rouge all the way up towards the left-hand kink at the top of the hill, which is Radion, onto the Camel Straight, where it's still going uphill all of the way, and the order still remains the same. Carl Cavers still leading the way and leading Trofeo Pirelli. And the battle for Coppa Shell still going in the direction of the number 69 car of Chris Smith at the moment. Just from the blue car that sits behind him, which is Robert Rees, then Paul Hogarth. So 2 minutes remain on the clock. Carl Cavers, subtly different line to Faisal Al Faisal, heading in towards Bruxelles that time through. Downhill towards Speaker's Corner. Left-hander, get on the throttle nice and early, carry the speed all the way down towards Double Gauche, but don't take too much speed into the first left-hand element of it. See the nose of the car dip, and then back on the throttle, flat out through the second aspect of it. But be careful and conscious of track limits on the exit. So Carl Cavers doing a good job at the moment of hanging on to the lead of the race. Fingernails being bitten all the way in the pit lane, because we still don't know which way the championship title is going. It's swinging in favour of the number 4 car of Andrew Morrow, and Andrew Morrow is now looking to try and see whether he can get past Hans Sickens to get himself on the overall podium. For Coppa Shell, here they come towards us as well, and we've had the shuffle there because Paul Hogarth has got himself through and ahead of Robert Rees somewhere. So the black car's gone through. Paul Hogarth from 3rd in Coppa Shell goes up to 2nd in Coppa Shell. And can he now attack Chris Smith for the Coppa Shell lead? The two of those going at it. So into the final 60 seconds. Here comes the lead battle in Coppa Shell. This is for 6th and 7th overall in the race. And the overall race lead is also now under pressure. Carl Cavers being attacked by Faisal Al Faisal, who makes contact with him and spins. And Carl Cavers, has he got a broken toe link? I think he might have possibly some damage to that car. Yes, he has. He's got a broken toe link. And all of a sudden, that's another twist in the championship tail. Hans Sickens over the start-finish line into the lead of the race on the final lap. Andrew Morrow up into 2nd position off the back of the grid and could make it a race win potentially. Well, surely now that Carl Cavers has retired, he's not going to be able to finish the race. Faisal Al Faisal limps his way back into the pit lane. Frustration for both, but no doubt delight for Andrew Morrow, because he now will know that he is on course to win the Trofeo Pirelli and the Ferrari Challenge UK 2023. Could he make it an overall win now to make it 4 for the season? Or can Hans Sickens chalk up his 3rd win of the season? John Dillon is also now on for an overall podium. He's not had one all year, so he's up into 3rd position, albeit a little way adrift now at the wheel of the Grey Paul Nottingham car. So Hans Sickens still with some work to do. Andrew Morrow right with him still as they head through Bruxelles for the final time. Hans Sickens sticking with the task for the moment. Desperate to see if he can hang on to the lead of the race. Now, Hans Sickens has finished runner-up in Trofeo Pirelli back in 2020. Andrew Morrow finished runner-up in Trofeo Pirelli in 2022. Is he going to try anything, or is Johnny Kane on the radio just saying to Andrew Morrow, look, you know, we want the win, it'd be great, but don't put yourself in danger at all. He's still trying hard, though, as they head through Le Fagna and then start to make their way up the slight hill that brings them in towards campus. The incident involving Carl Cavers and Faisal Al Faisal is currently under investigation, but for Hans Sickens and Andrew Morrow, they are heading out of Stavelot for the final time. The speeds build up to 7th gear for the last time this season they'll be heading. And can Andrew Morrow manage to try anything to pick up the lead of the race? He doesn't need to. It would purely be for pride. And of course, he's a racing driver. He wants to win the race. He wants to win the championship. And at the moment, the championship is going his way. Is the race going to go his way? He's not going to try anything, I don't think, at the final corner. So it looks as though Hans Sickens is going to pick up, is he, the final win of the year, nice and neat and tidy, out of the chicane. Hans Sickens wins the final round of the Ferrari Challenge UK in 2023. But Andrew Morrow is the champion, subject to official confirmation. 2nd is enough for him to claim the title this year. John Dillon comes through in 3rd place. That's his best result of the season so far. And Paul Hogarth takes the win in Coppa Shell. He is, subject to official confirmation, our Coppa Shell champion for 2023. He claims the win from Chris Smith and Robert Rees, who are 2nd and 3rd in Coppa Shell. And that will put them 5th and 6th overall. Wow, we really couldn't have written that script, could we? We have had so many curveballs thrown this year. Let's just have a quick look at that incident. Faisal Al-Faisal late on the brakes, contact made between himself and Carl Cavers. Faisal Al-Faisal with a spin, Carl Cavers with damage. Neither would finish the race, unfortunately. Such a shame that that happened. But it does mean that Andrew Morrow can finish second and John Dillon can finish on the podium for the first time this season. So whilst those drivers will be disappointed, others will be more than pleased. Another quick look. So Carl Cavers covering it off. There's just about enough room to start with, but then the gap closes and Faisal Al-Faisal, I think, probably saw the gap was closing and there wasn't a great deal he could then do about it. Contact was made and unfortunately it didn't do either of them a great deal of good at all. Both out of the race. But for Andrew Morrow, he'll be hugely pleased with that. So the race is done, the season is done, but the reaction down in the pit lane isn't done because that's where Dave Richardson is.
Oh, thanks, Mark. My goodness me. What did we say about drama? There couldn't be any more drama. We're just waiting for Andrew Morrow to get his crash helmet and the hands device off because we want to speak to him and we want to get the emotions and the reaction. He has done it and he's done it in style. I mean, he couldn't have made it any more blooming difficult because this morning, Andrew Morrow, provisionally Trofeo Pirelli champion. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely delighted. Tough race. Unfortunate ending for a couple of the guys, but race. Delighted.
Listen, friend, you came so close last year and you threw the dice this morning and really made it difficult for us all, but through it all, cool, calm and collected, Andrew.
Yeah, just this morning wasn't ideal, but I had to stay focused and focus on what I had to do. Really just my objective was to finish, but we kept pushing and managed to get up to P2, so couldn't have gone any better. I'm delighted.
I thought you were going to try and nick P1 at the end as well.
Was pushing hard, but didn't want to do anything. See if I could push Ham, but no, he held it together and he managed to get P1, but no, good race.
Well done, Andrew, and thanks for talking to us. Okay, what we're going to try and do now is go through the melee and try and find Paul Hogarth. Apologies to poor Sarah, who is my camera person, who's having to try and follow me. I hate walking backwards. I'm hopeless. I'm not very good at walking forwards, to be honest with you, Mark. But I've got to try and get him, haven't I? At the moment, I can see that the crash helmet is still on. And, of course, there is a throng of media around him as well. And he's going to the top of the car here. Be careful, Paul. Paul Hogarth is there. Look at that. The man is absolutely thrilled. And rightly so. Fulv Musi is his driver coach. The man did good.
Oh, mate, he did so good. I absolutely didn't doubt him for a second.
That's enough of you. I want to talk to the driver. Come on, get the hands device and crash helmet off. This is absolutely live. Paul Hogarth, provisionally, and I have to say that, of course, 2023 Coppa Shell champion. And do you know what? I don't think there's anyone up or down this paddock that would deny this man the success of taking this championship. He made it very, very difficult by having a really rubbish Silverstone, but then he came here. Paul Hogarth, how does it feel? Provisionally, I can say you are the champion.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes, provisionally, you are the champion, Paul.
Oh, yes!
Come on! That is fantastic. I have to say, I don't know whether you heard me, just leading into my piece with you, I said that actually, you know, not leaving aside Paul Simerson, who's absolutely fine, there is not one person up or down this pit lane that would deny you this championship. You so deserve it.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. We had a great start, obviously a rubbish Silverstone, but this has been incredible. And to get a win at Spa to finish off, absolutely amazing.
Listen, I look forward to seeing you on the podium and, of course, collecting your championship trophy in Mugello at Finale Mondiali.
Or as the French would say, à maison.
À maison, well done, well done. So there we have it, Mark. My duty was to get the champions, provisional champions, I should say. I think I've done that. Back to you, friend.
Thanks a lot, yeah, and we'll be bringing you all of the podiums as well very shortly on what has been a brilliant final weekend of racing at Spa-Francorchamps. Let's confirm the results then. Hans Sickins claims the win, his third of the season, with Andrew Morrow in second place, becoming the overall champion. John Dillon completes the podium in third, first podium for him this year. Paul Hogarth wins Coppa Shell on the road and becomes the champion. And then it is Chris Smith and Robert Rees will complete the Coppa Shell podium. So highlights then from the final race of the season. So the cars were on the grid, the green flag flies, and we get the last race of the 2023 championship season underway here at Spa-Francorchamps, with Carl Cavers getting a good run up towards Les Sources. He would lead the way, would pick up the lead, despite the pressure from Hans Sikkens and Faisal Al Faisal at the first corner. As the race wore on, there were great battles going on in Coppa Shell. Faisal Al Faisal had a good go to try and take second place away from Hans Sikkens. And as the two of them went up towards the top section of the circuit, they were still busy squabbling over who wanted to be second and who wanted to be third. Faisal Al Faisal would finally squeeze his way through. Stuart Marsden was having a good run in Coppa Shell. He'd drawn himself alongside Paul Hogarth down in towards the daunting Eau Rouge. Something had to give, and it was Stuart Marsden that managed to gain the place. A few laps later, he was right the way around the outside of Robert Rees to pick up the lead in Coppa Shell, and he would hang on to it. John Dillon was being kept busy, trying to keep Andrew Morrow behind him. Andrew Morrow gained the place, and with that single place game from 4th to 5th, that would be enough for him to seal the championship title. Robert Rees under pressure from Chris Smith, who almost ran out of room going in towards the bus stop. He would lead Coppa Shell because Stuart Marsden, who had been leading it, went off into the gravel. Then there was contact. Carl Cavers and Faisal Al Faisal making contact. Brief touch between the pair. Unfortunately, damage to the cars would put both out of the race. Hans Sikkens would claim the win. The title would go the way of Andrew Morrow in Trofeo Pirelli. And Coppa Shell went the way of Paul Hogarth. So, we had a total of 12 laps completed. Look at the top speeds that they're doing. 264 kilometres per hour from Faisal Al Faisal in Trofeo Pirelli. Lots of overtakes as well. Andrew Morrow made the best progress from the back of the grid. Fastest lap of the race went the way of Carl Cavers, and Stuart Marsden picked up the extra point for the fastest lap in Coppa Shell. What an end to a busy 2023 championship season. And of course, we will do it all again in 2024 with the season starting at Brands Hatch and concluding at Silverstone, also taking in the likes of Alton Park, and also we will be heading to Donington Park again for the first time in a while. So we can see more reaction still down there in the pit lane. The drivers will be threading their way through the inner sanctum of race control and making their way up towards the podium. It'll be a while before we get that done, because I can still see a few of the drivers that we need on the podium are still down there in the pit lane. You can see the team have already got the T-shirts printed. Hogarth 2023 UK champion in Ferrari Challenge. Didn't take them long to do that. There's Carl Cavers just heading through the shot as well. Disappointed look on his face. So let's just have a look at a few little bits from down in the pit lane. The excitement, the emotion, the tension down there in the pit lane, all brought to you by Ferrari Challenge UK. And, well, that as good as caps off our season. We've still got the podium presentations to bring you very, very shortly. There's AJ Pritchard, who is one of our special guests here this weekend from Strictly Come Dancing. And hopefully we might be able to catch up with him maybe before we finish the programme off over the course of the next few moments. So we're still waiting, of course, for the official confirmation. The official results are only usually issued about 30 minutes after the race, because a few cars, understandably, the likes of Hans Sikkens' car and also Paul Hogarth's car, need to go through scrutineering after the race just to check that they comply with the championship regulations. And once that is all ticked off, that shouldn't be a problem. Big puff of the cheeks from Jonathan Satchell. He looks a bit warm, doesn't he? But once that is all completed, then the official result is issued. The final result is issued about half an hour after the race. So that's why when Dave was chatting to drivers and when I was saying it as well, we always say provisionally you're the champion, or subject to official confirmation you're the champion. And that's because it's only about half an hour after the race where finally the results are rubber stamped, and then you are the champion. What a way to do it as well, to win the race at Spa-Francorchamps for Paul Hogarth and to become the champion as well. Andrew Morrow didn't quite make the win, but he did get on the podium both times this weekend, and to claim your championship title at Spa-Francorchamps, one of the most world-famous circuits. What a way to do it.
Here comes Trofeo Pirelli after one of the most dramatic races I have seen for ages. Please give it up at blooming last, P3 John Dillon!
So drivers making their way to the podium.
P2 and provisionally the Trofeo Pirelli champion, Andrew Morrow! And on the top step of the podium for the race win, here comes Hans Sickens! HRO and of course the Coppa dealer. We don't know whether we have a representative here. We do, thank you kind sir. And now it is the national anthem to play out. So as the national anthem plays out, we welcome Sean back to the
Hans Sickens, Andrew Morrow and John Dillon on the podium, and also HRO will be represented on the podium as the dealer that back Hans Sickens. Third place trophy goes the way of John Dillon, his first trophy of the 2023 championship season. Andrew Morrow gets the second place trophy, but the most important trophy, the championship trophy, will be heading his general direction. But the top step of the podium, and it's 3 wins this season for Hans Sickens. So then the Coppa Dealer Trophy going in the general direction of HRO.
Here comes the Pirelli Trophy from our partners at Pirelli, the Pirelli Motorsport Manager, Lucio Vigani here.
Lucio Vigani presenting the Pirelli Trophy also to Hans Sickens on the top step of the podium, shaking the hands of each one of the respective drivers. And then we'll get the official photographs taken, so they'll all bunch up on the top step. And then I'm sure then the representative HRO will want to disappear fairly quickly. So John Dillon finished third in a Trofeo Pirelli for Greypool Nottingham, his first podium of the 2023 championship season. Second in the race, representing Charles Hurst, from the back of the grid, was Andrew Morrow. Let's see just how close he got to Hans Sickens as he was pushing to try and grab the win, but second it was for himself and Charles Hurst. And of course, HRO and Hans Sickens are the winning combination. So the Trofeo Pirelli's drivers vacate the podium, and now it's time for the Coppa Shell drivers to make their way out onto the podium.
Please welcome, what a weekend he has had. Taking P3.
There's Stuart Marsden smiling, might have been retired, but he's still smiling. Robert Rees makes his way out onto the podium, finishing in third position. He took a win yesterday, but it's third today. Chris Smith heads back onto the podium, having finished in second position. But the top step of the podium and the championship goes the way of the delighted Paul Hogarth, who heads onto the top step of the podium. And of course, we'll have the dealer representative of the winning car, Stratstone Manchester, head onto the podium. And then it's time for the national anthem of the winning driver.
Stand by then. Here come the trophies. Bear in mind, the championship trophies will be presented at the Finale Mondiale event at the end of October in Mugello. For now, here come the race trophies with Lilou Wado once again.
So the trophies being presented by Lilou Wado, who is official factory driver for Ferrari. First of all, the third place trophy goes the way of Robert Rees. The second place trophy goes the way of Chris Smith. So Robert Rees representing Dick Lovett Swindon, Chris Smith representing Grey Paul Birmingham. Paul Hogarth for Stratstoke Manchester gets the winner's trophy, holds it aloft. And we also have the Coppa Dealer trophy to present. So Robert Rees claims a third place in Coppa Shell. Back on the podium for the second time this weekend. Chris Smith finished second in Coppa Shell. And the final Coppa Shell podium and the final win of the season in Coppa Shell went the way of Paul Hogarth. And that wraps things up for Ferrari Challenge 2023. Thanks for joining us at Spa. We'll see you in 2024. Goodbye.